Have you or someone you know experienced unexplained health issues potentially linked to electronic warfare? Project Archimedes, in conjunction with law firm Disabled Rights Advocates, is leading a groundbreaking worldwide action against the United States government, focusing on the impacts of 5G, EMF, and other unexplained phenomena, including what's known as Havana syndrome.
We're dealing with energy weapons,
permanent brain injuries, the unexplained, serious medical harm connected to a mysterious direct energy weapon.
It was like this piercing feeling on the side of my head.
If you've suffered from symptoms like headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or other unusual health effects that you believe could be related to these technologies, we want to hear from you. We are seeking justice for those affected by these potentially harmful technologies.
Sharp, localized ear pain, dull unilateral headache, tinnitus or ringing in one ear, vertigo, visual focusing issues, disorientation, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
By joining this movement, you could help prevent future harm and potentially seek compensation for what has been endured.
We have created a global class action lawsuit. Foreign litigants would be availed to the U.S. courts to seek recovery for those who caused the damage. All roads point back to the United States.
To learn more about your rights, potential eligibility, and how to join the movement, visit projectarchimedes.org.
So we're going to sue in the United States with people from all over the planet who qualify to be a plaintiff simply on the basis that they spend an hour or more a day within 100 meters of a 5G transmitter.
Project Archimedes and attorney Todd Callender are committed to fighting for those who have been impacted.
These are the people who can't fight for themselves. They're the ones who can't hire the lawyer.
Visit projectarchimedes.org today to find out more about joining the movement.
Hello, Vax Choice, Clout Hub, and Liberty Club community. Thank you so much for joining us today for a live episode of Truth Be Told, hosted as always by Todd Callender. How are you doing today, Todd?
I'm fabulous. Happy Friday. Almost always. Every now and again, you guys have to cover for me, but I always enjoy being here with you, Melissa. And today, with our longtime pal, Brad Wozny. It's fun to catch up with him. He's always got a different perspective. So it's a beautiful Friday. I'm looking forward to having this chat. I hope that our family, Clout Hub, Liberty Club, etc., will join in and ask some questions. Be a part of it.
Yeah, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. That's how we're able to stay
share.
Is right. By everybody, contributing by sharing, making sure our content is seen, and signing up for Clout Hub and Liberty Club.
Yeah, exactly. That's the hard part, Melissa, is that, we've got a lot of viewership. We're making a difference by reaching folks. I know because we're starting to hear it and the normies are starting to talk about it, but it's really difficult for us to, convince those people who are willing to do ad spend that you all are here because you don't collaborate. You're not reacting very much or commenting. So it actually ends up hitting us in the pocketbook a little bit. So if you would do us a favor, please jump in on this conversation. As you know, it's anonymous. We don't care who you are. We just want you to be a part of the solution, and you can do that by contributing. So please do. And by the way, we've got some bright people, Melissa, in our family. It's just amazing. All of these people have been ignored largely for their lives because they thought differently. Those are the perspectives that were always right. Those are the perspectives we need to help others understand. They had it right the whole time. So now it's the truth is coming out. And it's time for you all to say, look, I told you so. Here it is. Here's the proof. And Melissa, you and the team do a fantastic job, by the way, of updating the information in the show notes, but also on Clout Hub News, Vax Choice. All of the evidence is there. We always bring the evidence.
That's right. We sure do. And Todd, I'm going to let you share your monologue with people, and I will be in the background enjoying the show, and I'll be back for questions.
Fantastic, as always, Melissa. Thanks to you and the rest of the family in the back. I'm just one guy, and it takes a whole lot of people to put all this together. So thanks to all of you that do that and contribute. That also applies to the folks that are actually taking a link and sending it around. It's right below the video itself. Please, when you send it around, remind people that every video on CloutHub is available in every spoken language. There's a little white box that you can click on, and it instantly translates the videos into every spoken language. So send it to your friends in Saudi Arabia or Russia or wherever, because the fight is for humanity. We are in World War III, as you know, and the war is on humanity. It is on us. And funny enough, to my point about folks catching on, you're going to see a little bit later in the monologue that our information is getting echoed on X and everywhere else. So we're really making an impact now, and that is because of you, ladies and gentlemen. When you have those dinners around the family table, and you have these chats, and and you're changing people's minds, it's really important, because it's the collective consciousness by which we survive. It is the collective consciousness that the demons seek to control, so that they can move us like a cattle herd right to the packing plant. We ain't going there, as you would have seen from earlier monologues this week and from last week. Pandemic 2 has already been rolled out. They're trying to move it forward. It looks like they're not having a lot of luck with it, but they're not done trying. Why? Because we are in the phase of Synbio. Evidence suggests that there's 1 billion or more Synbio people already on this planet. Synbio meaning that they are part human, they are part biological computer, and therefore programmable. No, Harari loves to talk about it. We've hacked humans. They're just animals. We've hacked animals. In fact, that's part of what goes into the whole thing today, is animals being part of the symbiosphere, because they're harvesting their energy and their bodies for cloud computing. What bothers me a lot is that these big companies behind it have been behind it for a while, for 20 or more years. Nvidia is one of them. And I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, Nvidia, these are not the good guys. Right? These guys are a part of the ownership paradigm, not just changing humans into symbio-owned creatures pursuant to the Myriad case we've talked about many times. But these guys have unveiled their partnerships with healthcare organizations such as Mayo Clinic, Illumina, we're going to get to them in a minute, Arc Institute. They're going to use their technology to accelerate drug discovery. What does that mean? Enhance genomic research and develop advanced services using agentic and generative artificial intelligence. Yes, they are all hooked in together because they are one. Artificial intelligence combined with our bodies is the Synbio goal. Why? Because they can use our physical bodies and all of the components, bacteria included, as computers. They're using us without paying us, but they're already doing it. And people are like, well, they'll get to it one day. No. This has happened. It's already happened. And one of the other players in this is a company called Illumina Inc. So in December 2020, they got a great giant grant from none other than the US government for what? Testing COVID. Oh, sure. Are these the same gangsters that did the PCR tests for COVID-19 all the way back in 2017? The disease was not named COVID-19 until February of 2020. So how were they selling PCR tests in 2017 called COVID-19? The answer is because it was a plan, and these guys were involved in it, and they are chasing down track and trace, which includes, of course, luciferase, my Lord, and genetic sequencing and testing. 3 places to the right of the decimal place, and genetic signature allows them to identify for digital ID. That's what they're after. I had a very interesting conversation with Jerome Corsi earlier today about real ID, which is a bit different from digital ID. That's more of a voting thing for President Trump. It's less of a digital ID thing. But President Trump, you've got to understand, these tech companies that you are authorizing to be involved in all this stuff, these are not good guys. These are the ones that have already usurped humanity. They've already captured and changed people into vax slaves. And we've got to stop this, or we're done. It's really that simple. Whether our species is extinct by death or by mutation into a new species is irrelevant. Either way, our species is gone. They seek to change every one of God's creations into their own for the purpose of spiting God. There is a Synbio artificial intelligence piece of video we're going to talk about right now, or somebody else is going to talk about it. The point is that China's not behind. Why is China not behind? because the owners made sure. Governments are an illusion of choice. They are tools. This is the owners using the Chinese to make sure that AI gets integrated with the Chinese people. No different than the owners are making sure DARPA and the US DoD et al. Are being used to integrate Americans. It's above government. It is super government. So keep that in mind while you watch this little clip.
There should always be policy that enables, supports, and accelerate the ability for us to onshore manufacturing. But with willpower and with the resources of our country, I'm certain we can manufacture onshore.
What's your reaction to the Wall Street Journal saying Huawei is advancing to catch up to your highest level chips?
There's no question that Huawei is one of the most formidable technology companies in the world. And they're incredible in computing, they're incredible in networking technology and software capabilities, all of the essential capabilities to advance AI. And they've made enormous progress in the last several years. Whatever policy the administration puts together really should enable us to accelerate the development of AI, enable us to compete on a global stage.
How far, can I just one more, like how far behind do you think China is?
China is not behind. Anybody
Are they ahead of you?
China is right behind us. I mean, we're very, very close.
We're very, very close. Why is that, sir? Because you got the exact same people handing the exact same technology off to both sides. So nobody's behind. They are progressing this agenda against our species. Of course, they're not behind. Of course, they're neck and neck. Because if you wanted to rule the world, if you wanted to change everybody into your computers, your Synbio computers, wouldn't you try and diversify concentration risk? If, for example, the United States fell under the control of President Trump, who then said, no, I'm not doing this, what would happen? Well, you'd have the Chinese making up the difference, right? Same goes the other way. If China falls, then you'd have the US. And by the way, it's not just the two of them. Right? You got India out there, you got Russia out there. There are technology companies all over the planet, at the end of the day, owned by the owner class, all in furtherance of the same goal. Guess what? Somebody on X figured that out. They've been paying attention. Some of this stuff is our own words. Put that up, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind. This is a fabulous X post, and I hope that you will click on it and go through it, because it details everything we've been talking about. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why we exist, right? They're talking about Synbio. They're talking about all the things that we're discussing right here, right now, because we're making a difference. When I say we are making a difference, I'm saying you are making a difference. It is by virtue of these conversations that we've taken over the lexicon. Talking to Sam Anthony, who we spoke to earlier in this week, he's in the media business. And he's talking about MSNBC gets like 50,000 views. You know, that's it. Man, we get 50,000 views in a couple of hours on here. What does that tell you? Even Fox News, I think they get something like a 3 million a quarter. We're all doing that. Why? Because people want the truth. We're tired of being lied to. And now what you've done is make it possible for people to share the truth. You're sending out the evidence, the receipts, as Brad calls it, and our friend Maria Z, by the way. And it's really cool. Our culture, the truth culture, is we're happy to prove the case. Right? We always have citation. We always have resources, otherwise known as the receipts. We make them available to you for this very reason, so that when you speak with credibility. And I'm so proud of what it is we've accomplished, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of it. We're not quite done with it yet, but I would say this is really cool. Klaus Schwab's own daughter, right? Mr. Evil Baron Genius, whatever freak he is. His own daughter's narking. Why? Because they all been caught. Listen to this. This is great.
The old cynicism is gone. We have faith in our leaders. We're optimistic as to what becomes of it all. It really boils down to our ability to accept. We don't need pessimism. There are no limits.
It figures it would be something like this.
Nico Schwab,
The daughter of World Economic Forum co-founder Klaus is extensively cooperating with prosecutors in the Crimes Against Humanity case against key figures of the global elite, sparking fear in the WEF, the UN and the WHO that their diplomatic immunity is about to be revoked and arrest warrants issued. Behind the scenes, the so-called untouchables are panicking. Investigations, once thought impossible, are in full swing. Prosecutors are circling. The illusion of immunity is cracking. And whispers inside the International Criminal Court say we're on the brink of Nuremberg 2.0. Real names, real trials, real consequences. The globalist elites have made the last 5 years hell for humanity, but we've held strong, maintained our dignity, and exposed their deceptions one after another. Our abusers have been backed into a corner, and now they're being forced to admit the crimes they've committed. They want us to forgive and forget. But we the people are not going to let that happen. Because this isn't just about justice, it's about reckoning. And it's close.
Yeah, it is closer than we think. And credit is due, ladies and gentlemen. Credit is due here. You might recall, it's been a couple, 3 years now that Pascal Najati appeared with me on SGT Report, our friend Sean, who does that. And he announced to the world that he had filed a criminal complaint in Switzerland, in Geneva, where Klaus, the WHO, and all these gangsters are. He was vaccine injured. He said that he was fooled. He was told by their own government and the parliament these shots were safe and effective, and he found the evidence and he filed a criminal complaint. I have reviewed it. It's all of a page. But he went down to the local police and did it, and then he saw it through. Believe it or not, his father was one of the original founders of the World Economic Forum. His dad didn't like where it was going, so he dropped out. His dad was later assassinated, by the way. I don't think that's by coincidence. But Pascal didn't stop there. You know, he really could have, and he didn't. He made it his life's ambition to put this to bed, meaning getting these people prosecuted. And Pascal, good on you, brother. God bless you for so doing. A lot of people are unhappy with Pascal because he's very vociferous. He'll tell you whatever's on his mind. Well, that's called the truth, and it's his perspective, and I think he deserves credit for this. So, Pascal, congratulations to you for getting that done, because I have zero doubt that what that man was talking about in terms of criminal prosecutions was from your criminal complaint. It's the only one in the world that I'm aware of that actually went anywhere. And I know that that one went to the Attorney General's office in Switzerland, and I think they've been working on this now for a couple of years. It seems to me they are in a very good place to put these people away. But it's an interesting component, isn't it, that that's actually the nation doing this, because these guys thought they were above the law. If you can imagine that, Bank for International Settlements, WHO, UN all gave themselves diplomatic immunity. By who? By Switzerland. So who gets to take away the diplomatic immunity? Switzerland. Genius. Absolute genius. So again, above government, Colonel Sellon, who is a friend of ours, brilliant guy, also put the pieces together. He demonstrated in this article that this is a military operation. You might remember the name of the book that I wrote with Dr. Corsi and Dr. Campbell, I apologize to you. It's medical martial law, Disease X medical martial law, the plan to depopulate the planet. It's all in there, and Colonel Sellon is one of our pals, and he lays it out here that this is a militarized operation that Fauci, who I call Fraudchi often, was actually funding from the U.S. government, NIH or NIAH, whatever the stupid agency he was in charge of. He was sending money to the Chinese military. That's the People's Liberation Army, to their scientists. Why would he do that? Right? Isn't China, a foe? Not exactly an enemy nation, but they're not an ally. And yet he's sending their military money from your tax dollars. Thank you, Colonel Sellon. Last but not least, our friend Mark Steele from Save Us Now points out that yes, indeed, the 5G and the ELIS system, all of that is related to artificial intelligence, Synbio, and what? Our prisons. Our prisons are otherwise known as C40 cities. What did you see in Palisades, California and Malibu? They're burning up the cities to force everybody into these 15-minute cities, otherwise known as C40 cities. Check your city. Check the city code. It'll be in the local law as to whether you have a C40 city. Watch this from Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Sustainable transport, all right, after they've blinded you all. But anyway, it's all part of the UK government's transport vision, where you don't have a car, you've got no mobility. You basically do as you're told, and you're a drone. Okay, that's the whole real plan. Right? They just didn't tell you that. Obviously, this UK authority, that tells you that your executive branch and the councillors read this, and the World Economic has chosen them to be smart cities. Fantastic. Sounds great, doesn't it? So we're all going to get super militarized armaments and residential technology cities. Yeah. So the C40 city race to zero, basically to depopulate. And here we have in 2014, this was the LT, this was the start of 5G. And 5G is specifically identified due to the antenna design. So here you have a proliferation in 219, and that's when your councils call a climate emergency. Well, I can see the thermal footprint. I'm not that stupid. Looks like the local authorities are willfully stupid. But what they did, they breached the Public Health and Disease.
Yeah, that was really good, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, click on that link when you get a chance, please. And it's related to the Belt and Road Initiative. Brad Wozny, who also lives outside the United States and Central America, probably knows something about the Belt and Road Initiative. Brad, welcome back to Truth Be Told. It's such a joy to have you here. It's kind of a monthly thing, and I'm grateful for it. I am curious. You know, the Belt and Road was added to the Chinese Constitution in 2013 by the IMF. Who funded it? And they're making this autonomous belt around the world, just what it was Mark was talking about. Have you seen it in Central America?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, and I think that's one of the big pushbacks that the Trump administration is doing, Todd. You know, you got to kind of cut off the head of the snake, so to speak, take back the Panama Canal. And then you start securing yourself with the pincer movement by building the wall, 10,000 troops at the southern border along Mexico. And then you start propping up your allies like El Salvador and Argentina and start working your way in. NATO just had a meeting in Costa Rica, of all places.
What? You don't have a military in Costa Rica?
No. So why is that happening, right? Things we have to ask, question, and look into for sure.
Well, and you got Nicaragua next door. And of course, that was all part of the Iran-Contra thing because it's pretty loosey-goosey on arms laws, right, amongst other things. It's kind of like a playground for spooks. You know what I mean?
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, so now you got USAID yanked. The money's gone. I know that somebody senior there was running all kinds of ops in there for the intel agencies, and I understand it. It is over. Marco Rubio said, "None of us. We ain't doing that anymore." So I'm kind of curious what the fallout is. Is everybody running amok or running their own, their own scams? There must be airplanes full of rubber dog crap flying all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And if you failed fighter weapons school, that's what you're going to go get, right? Just like that quote from Top Gun.
That's exactly right.
Your favorite movie of all time. Unfortunately, turns out Cruise is probably one of the bad guys. So, but anyway, we all have to hold on to those things that we know. It was still a good message in that movie. Man, there's so much. Speaking of that, right? Chemtrails and the kill trails.
Yeah, tell me about the kill trails.
Well, so flip the script for a moment. As the interviewer, not only are you an amazing hero by actually taking the background of your military experience and your law experience and standing up for people just like a Tom Renz and the Lee Dundasses of the world, many are familiar with, Todd. You're also a pilot, and I don't know how many people here are aware of it. So when we talk about this, when we say, look at chemtrails, which we've been saying for years, and I was in 2004, before leaving RIM BlackBerry, my job, and starting my entrepreneurial aspects and investments in real estate, I had my own buddies in San Francisco who I worked with, and I'm like, those are chemtrails. And they said I was a conspiracy theorist back in 2004. I'm like, well, my sister, she works for the Pentagon and DOD and NSA and DIA now. And she red-pilled me on HARP in 2002. I had already gotten out of the Army by then. And I'm like, those are chemtrails. There's
no theory.
No straight line in
theory at all.
So as an aviator and as a military guy and as a fellow who stands up for mankind, true mankind, what are chemtrails versus contrails? I think we need to start there.
Sure, that's easy. So first and foremost, contrails can only happen as a function of temperature. So as you fly higher, temperature decreases by 2 degrees per 1,000 feet. And when you expel hot gases from your engines, they freeze instantly at certain temperatures. Typically, it's around 30 degrees below 0 centigrade. So you got to be pretty high before you do that. You're flying around at 20,000 feet, you won't produce chemtrails. You got to be really high. And they only come as a result of those gases that are hot and have some level of liquid in them. Typically, there's a little bit of moisture to them. And then they dispel quickly as a feature of it getting absorbed into the atmosphere, diffusion. Versus chemtrails, and when I say quickly, I'm talking like 20 seconds. That's done. Your contrail's done. Chemtrails last not only for hours, but they also spread out, and they are aerosolized spraying, which was actually written into U.S. law in 1976 under the Weather Modification Act. You said you have to file a little notice with the Department of Commerce, and then you too can go fly chemtrails, and they're actually dispersing chemical agents. Sometimes it's out of actual dispersal parts on the wings or in the tail of the airplane. More recently, and I mean really more recently, in the last couple of years, they were actually putting the components into jet fuel because then you can hide it coming out of the jet engines. It took them a while to get there. And Brad, this was a military operation for a long time. There are guys in that unit who were handpicked because they didn't have family. They were typically orphans or lost all their families, people who didn't give a crap about life, and they were handpicked for that job in case they figured out that they were actually poisoning everybody below them. And now we're starting to get some of these people as whistleblowers coming out saying, yeah, it's all true. And you can even look it up now. Some of the chemtrail pilots that are, getting contracts from the government will take you on a chemtrail flight. You flick this switch and it goes out and da-da-da, air traffic controls are aware of it. We have whistleblowers in the FAA. I mean, this is not in any sense of the word speculation. It never has been a theory. This is a fact. It's just that the intelligence operations do a really good job of keeping the people's minds focused on heading towards that meatpacking plant. And you don't want any distractions. Don't worry about the fact you're getting poisoned in the process. And remember, Brad, 2001, NASA Langley research paper on warfare in 2025, fifth generation warfare, said that they were going to drop nanobots in aerosolized sprays to bore into our lungs and then do what? They're going to disperse pathogens inside the body. This was freaking CIA and NASA, right? The space guys telling us what they were going to do in 2025. Where are we? I mean, what are we supposed to do? They wrote it down. I mean, they wrote it down for a reason, Brad.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's going to push back on it, and we're just going to go ahead as part of their karma.
That's what they did. But it's above government. That's the part I'm trying to impart to people, is that governments are an illusion of choice, right? We elect this guy or that guy. I think it's going to change this or that. That's just to keep us placated and in control. The reality is the owner class are doing whatever the hell they want to do vis-a-vis Jeffrey Epstein.
Man. Yeah, it's the keeping it clean here on Cloud Hub and Vax Choice, the effects that it have on the whole population, and what we all need to look at is be thankful you're able to watch this and be thankful you're here, because the entire world, unfortunately, has been secretly trying to murder all of us for the most part, the majority of it, right? And you're all still here, so be thankful for that, and be thankful that here you have Bobby Kennedy Jr. saying that HHS is the #1 vector for human slavery and trafficking and child sex slavery in the United States government, with a $1.3 trillion annual budget last year, which had 9 IT departments, 4 HR departments inside of it. So that just got disclosed, and then it just disclosed that it was DARPA they found. So to me, Todd, as an attorney who has been in many prosecuted cases on both sides, is this not a war crime? If you are knowingly poisoning people to the point of doing harm and or death, this is a war crime.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you raised that issue. Thank you for so doing. So you might have seen in years prior, everybody's afraid to talk about war crimes. They're even afraid to say who done it. Right? They don't want to point the finger. And the reason for that is by virtue of treaties on the subject matter, war crimes came as a function of Nuremberg in Germany. 1947 was the first place for international criminal law. What that means is that you can't hide anywhere on the planet. Universal jurisdiction exists. So if you commit a war crime, you can't run and hide anywhere, because everybody that signed on to these treaties has an obligation to help put you away or even hang you, as the case may be. There's no escaping. So everybody's terrified of using this characterization because it comes back like a boomerang, right? Because complicity is enough to be hung. It's under the felony murder rule. If a person dies in the commission of a felony, everybody's guilty of murder. Well, how about all those general officers, Brad, who followed Lloyd Austin's illegal order? Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. It was an illegal order, which means every one of those officers, all the way down to the non-commissioned officers who forced your troops to take the shots, are guilty of war crimes. Nobody wants to talk about it, but that's a fact. Universally, it's not just in the US. Don't forget, this was global. Absolutely freaking global.
And that, does this not also apply to the civilian then as well? Whether it would be, you know, nurses, doctors, administrators, schools, business owners, businesses.
Crimes
Netflix.
Against humanity. So let's talk about it in that sense. War crimes are one thing done by military, but you know, civilian government people can be convicted of that. And by the way, heads of state can now be hung thanks to none other than Saddam Hussein. He was the first head of state ever put to death for war crimes and crimes against humanity. So now, it used to be, you know, heads of state were exempt. They were immune to capital offenses. That's gone, George Bush. You're the guy that did that, and you're still alive. So I'd be a little bit worried about you, Georgie, given the boomerang effect of this. But to your point, Brad, to your point, the answer is yes. The crimes against humanity were born of Nuremberg. How many people, Brad? How many people gave informed consent? Right? When they forced these shots, you employee, you student, you professor, you meter maid, take this shot. It was impossible to give informed consent because they didn't even tell you what the ingredients were. And you have to do that to give informed consent. You have to know what the hell you're taking. If you pull out the sheet that's supposed to tell you what's in it, they were blank. So to your point, good sir, they're all guilty of crimes against humanity.
And President Trump just signed another executive order. I'm not sure if you saw this, Todd or Melissa or anybody else here, but it was April 28th, and it's called Strengthening and Unleashing America's Law Enforcement to Pursue Criminals and Protect Innocent Citizens. Now, in that, it also references the Posse Comitatus Act. Yet the Posse Comitatus Act can leverage the military to augment civilian law enforcement and sheriffs as well, to help with the arrest. Now, back in January and in December, I was told by Juan Savin, and he called me on Boxing Day evening and had about an hour and a half chat. And, you know, it reminds me, he goes, you know, there's 800,000 sealed indictments right now, just waiting for the Trump administration and Bondi to get in and confirmed. Again, this is December 26th, folks. So just over 5 months ago. And he said, each one of those sealed indictments can carry up to 99 names. And each individual, somebody could be on 20 different indictments, so one name all across. But if you do the math, that would be 78 million Americans are on sealed indictments, which are going to be arrested. So now we just have executive order on April 28th, signed by President Trump, which allows Posse Comitatus to be active should the president deem it necessary. And as you well know, to presidential action and an executive order. And if we're in a wartime situation,
we are.
Then
it's war on humanity.
Right.
Holy cow. I know, Brad, I actually missed that. So thank you for bringing that to all of us. And I'm just sitting here wondering, you know, if they'll do it the way that he had done in his first term of office, which was actually pretty clever. What he did was use the National Guard, and he had them deputized as U.S. federal marshals. I saw that I worked in federal law enforcement in law school, and there was a time when all the special agents were actually deputized as federal marshals for a very important reason, and that was continuity of jurisdiction. It basically changed National Guard service members, citizen soldiers, into law enforcement officers. And you might remember they had them camped out in Washington, D.C. We were all wondering what was that about. And I'm not entirely sure what all that was about. But what you make in reference to that many people potentially being in sealed indictments is overwhelming. Where is Pam Bondi, right? What is she doing? I haven't seen her do anything. Do you know?
Well, I saw a release from her that she in that presidential cabinet meeting this week. I guess not a release, a clip. Excuse me, everybody, with my verbiage. And as a result of that, she said, "I'm literally signing death warrants right now to go out and get back." We saw Bongino say 2 weeks ago on his Twitter X profile, he said that silence does not equal inaction. There are things happening that people are not seeing. We also saw Tom Homan up on this week. Tom, amazing.
Yeah.
You know, just talk about that he is going to keep doing the job, and the job is being done right now. Even people may not be seeing a lot, but he did say the job is being done behind the scenes, and that he'll continue to stay on until every child is saved. And that
we got to talk about
America.
that.
So
we got to
yeah,
talk about that.
amazing.
So Tom, thank you for that. The one thing that I think we're missing, Brad, and if you've got the ability to help in this, it's really important. I was just talking to Dr. Corsi about this. You know, he was my co-author and he's a friend.
Nice.
The problem is that when you go in and you rescue these kids, there's nowhere to put them, right? Child Protective Services in each state were guilty of pimping these kids out. They'd go and steal them from parents. I can't tell you how many cases I've been in where Child Protective Services was taking a kid, like a baby, from the parents so that the hospital could experiment, do a lung transplant on a perfectly healthy kid. So they had been weaponized to steal these kids. So when we save these kids, you know, Colonel Chambers is one of those. He's out there saving kids. Where do we put them? We don't have a safe place to put them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know.
That's real key. I don't know exactly either, Todd. You know, under EO 13818, it states that you can, and that was signed January 27, effective 2020. And under that executive order, or might be 17th, but anyway, it was 2020 January. And under that executive order, if you're involved in, you know, RICO, right? Presidential.
It is RICO.
You know, if you're in fraud, trafficking, etc., then we can seize you, debank you, and take on all your assets, repurpose them offshore in the treasury, and then maybe turn it around. So perhaps behind the scenes, there's been some excellent movements in order to get those kids rescued. I just watched another interview with Craig Sawyer, who runs Vets for Kids, and he's a SEAL Team guy as well. Incredible man, right? Complete Archangel Michael type, like Michael Jaco, you know, warrior for God and light. And you know, he's still actively going out to save these kids and stating that it is CPS, and we have the same in Canada, Children's Aid Society, that have enacted the same orders that literally say, if the parents say no, we will have the cops show up to the door, arrest the parents, get the kids, snatch them, and that's it. They're awarded.
And then they're pimping them out. It's worse. They're not just, they're not just awarded state. They are literally being pimped out by the CPS people. I mean, I've been involved in these cases, and I have intervened where, you know, they were stealing the kids so they could do medical experimentation. This is very real, and it's very concerning. And you made a very good point, Brad. I always admire the fact that you're so keen on little bits of law that are applicable. It's a really good talent. Recall back to the very first executive order President Trump did when he took office in 2017, and it was on human trafficking, and he included in that something called IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, that allows for civil asset forfeiture, not just in the United States, but abroad. So you're absolutely fundamentally correct. He can seize assets with this law. It authorized U.S. Law enforcement agencies to go and take it on mere suspicion alone, believe it or not. You have to have probable cause to keep the stuff. But on mere suspicion alone, you can go and investigate this, and you don't ever have to prove a crime. But if somebody's been involved in sex trafficking, child trafficking, human trafficking, we can take their stuff. So to your point, wouldn't it be great to take back all that farmland from the Chinese that were involved in human trafficking, including putting Uyghurs to death and all the other stuff? You know, we could have really happy children out there enjoying the farm life and learning critical skills. Just saying.
Most definitely. That would be amazing, Todd. And under proper supervision and security so they don't have to be threatened as well. And I apologize, I misquoted the time. It was actually signed December 2017. Getting my EOs mixed up here.
There's a lot of them.
And there's a lot of them, right? The most ever unleashed. Because, to me, he's still a wartime commander-in-chief, right?
Yes, we are in a war.
45-47 and 45-47. I think he was having a little fun with people there. And he just stated the other day, he goes, we're actually serving our third term right now. He literally just said that.
Well, I think there's truth in that. So I'm glad you said that, because it is my belief that we were allowed to suffer Biden for 4 years, because nobody would have believed it if we said it. Well, we have been saying, Brad, for as long as I've known you, you've been out there telling the truth, and you've suffered the whole conspiracy theory label, as have we all. Without any shame, you wear it well. But the point is that the normies, the regular people who ignored the danger and got the shots and lived their life, would never have believed us if we told them what Biden was going to do had he won. I think he was allowed to win. And I think in the background, President Trump was really, truly running things. And I say that with some level of confidence. I happened to land in West Palm Beach, taxied my plane under the nose of President Trump's giant 757.
Nice.
And I've got pictures of it. It was crazy. It was really bad weather.
Awesome.
I was looking up the nose of the 757. But there was so much tin on the ramp at the FBO where he keeps his airplane. The tin was from every country in the world, with official government flags on the tails of these airplanes. They were there to see President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And I was walking in next to these guys at the FBO, and I was like looking around. There's like generals from other nations and heads of state. And that was when Biden was theoretically occupying the Oval Office. Theoretically.
Well, theoretically. Yeah, exactly, Todd. And if as any president, who are not serving their term, they cannot meet officials from other countries in their private residence, or go to jail. So if anybody in the Biden administration was going, hey, any chance they would get, they want to go after him and take him down. And we know what they've done with him, right? Put the slings and the arrows to Trump and the Trump family. And then all of a sudden this is happening, and this is wide in the open, and you have multiple countries flying in. He's meeting with Bolsonaro. He's meeting with
Zelensky
at Mar-a-Lago, and he's supposedly not the president in that term. That's an immediate jail sentence, right? That weaponized DOJ and FBI should have arrested him. Why didn't that aspect happen? And as you know, as a military man, and as a strategist, as an entrepreneur, as well as an attorney, what type of pincer movement? We talked about that in the beginning with, carving up Panama Canal, bringing that back to American territory, carving up the southern border, supplanting at least 10,000 publicly reported troops on the border, and going after that and conducting Operation Sinaloa that General Valley wrote and handed over to Trump.
God love him.
And the White Hats a little while ago. What then would be a pincer movement if you are fighting the invisible enemy, which is what he said 5 years ago? He said, we're fighting an invisible enemy.
He's right.
And it is global. It is worldwide. It is on planet, below planet, and above planet. Think about the dumps. And in the cities and the deep underground sea bases too, or the deep underwater sea bases, excuse me. And you have to find out who's on your side and who's not, and you can't.
How do you do that? How do you do that? Well, and I tell you what, Brad, it's funny. I've been talking about this a little bit lately, because in the early days, funny enough, it was General McInerney was there. That's part of the Stand Up America Foundation people. We were meeting with service members trying to figure out how are we going to stop the shots in the DOD. And it's really fascinating to understand exactly what it is you're talking about, that this was a formidable setup. They understood it, and somehow has fooled everybody into thinking that he doesn't know anything. It's really amazing. So in terms of the pincer movement, I think it's also interesting that he recognized a concentration risk with the ports. So here you had Hutchinson Whampoa, biggest port owner in the world, 40-something different ports around the world, including one in the Bahamas, Panama Canal, all over the place. BlackRock rolls in and buys all of them in one go. So the Chinese were stupid. They've lost their transportation because BlackRock, which appears to me to be an acquisition vehicle that President Trump took over, just acquired them all. And then Li Ka-shing, who used to own it, and I don't know, I feel bad for that guy, but it was a pincer move. It was a sweet move. And I hope it gets done.
Yeah, definitely. But in the meantime, we've got chemtrails and killtrails still going in AI.
Yeah.
Like we've got Bill Gates sitting there on Jimmy Fallon, this weekend that just aired the show. And they're laughing. And Jimmy Fallon's lizard eyes are moving left and right, horizontally, right? Like both of our eyes cannot independently do that.
No.
Human eyes. And Jimmy Fallon's eyes do this.
Are you kidding me? I never knew that.
Yeah, you can go look at some pretty cool. I'm sure there's.
Has he got the weird lizard slit too? Because I've seen that in some people.
I haven't seen the slit on him yet, but I don't watch obviously.
But his eyes can move independently, like
he can move his eyes. Yeah.
That's creepy. What was it? Who was the guy? Bourla, the Pfizer guy. Did you see his freaky neck doing lizard things?
Yeah.
Oh, it's creepy as all get out. So when we identify them, that's what I wanted to go back to when we were talking about the military.
Shapeshifters. Yeah.
One of the ways when we were plotting this out, how to stop the military, we didn't know who was who. That was my point. We started the meetings with a prayer. And you would be shocked as soon as we said the name Jesus Christ. They're gone. Boom, 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 boom. Perfect. It's astounding. It really is. This is a war for our souls. This is a spiritual battle. So I mentioned the name Jesus Christ a lot because I want to know who it is I'm dealing with. How do we recognize who these demons are?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, by the way, is an element of spiritual warfare that Bishop Jim, you had him on earlier.
He's such a joy. Yeah.
Incredible man. That's part of it, right? You can command in the name of Jesus, and you can also, if they're sitting with you and you've talked that, you can give them a little bit of holy water in their water and see what happens. And actually, if somebody is demonically possessed, they will vomit all over. So you probably don't want to get to that point with guests on your channel, but you just say in the name of Jesus or open in prayer, and you will know. They can't handle that. They can't handle church bells, and then they will also shape. And people, that's another thing to wake up on too. We are 100%. There are shape-shifted reptilian lizards around here. I've seen them. Jim's seen them. Bishop Jim and I have worked together for years. So it's nice that he's able to come out now and start promoting it.
Yeah.
And
you said something. That. Hang on, dude. Have you seen the graveyards full of bells? They have removed bells all over the world, and I don't know why they don't just melt them down. There are these great giant graveyards of church bells.
Yeah,
I mean, look it up online. It's insane. But I looked around here, and I'm like, there's a bell that goes off around here, but it's not a real bell, right? They've actually removed them. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa.
I mean, look at these things. I mean, there's bajillions of these things. So that's what it's about, Brad. That's what you're saying is they can't stand the sound of a church bell. So we need to install bells.
They will shift.
And wow, it's a frequency
they will
thing.
Shift and run. Yeah, and like the we've got people building those goggles, the Diason goggles.
Hey, we talked about it last time.
We talked about it last time. We've got that underway, being built, right now, because again, you have to source the mercury.
You're my hero, dude.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say names on who it is, but they're incredible folks, and they can't wait to come on when it's tested and working. But those are true Diason goggles, and they're connected with Bishop Jim because he had already.
Oh, fabulous!
That. And there is absolute FOIA request paperwork. You guys showed it here that it's true. So now, if we can do that, then we are able to see them. That's another reason for them to all hide. Right, as well as what they're putting in the chemtrails right now, these biological agents, which Mike Adams and Dr. Jane Ruby did incredible work to say are the Florida kill trails. Not only are they self-assembling nanotechnology and self-replicating, and that's a difference, right? Self-assembling means you've got the Terminator T-1000 in bloodstreams that are coming together and build, and self-replicating means they will actually build off each other and make more. Microchips exponentially and take over the body, like you mentioned. And there's biological agents, creatures that are growing that are unrecognizable to all known science. Dr. Jane Ruby and Mike Adams, Health Ranger, from the kill trails sprayed over Florida 4 weeks ago.
I saw it. God love them both. Truth warriors. And I love them. In fact, that's the coolest part about this whole thing, Brad, is we got to meet the coolest people on this planet, and not just meet, but collaborate with them. And the common bond at the end of the day is truth. And truth is a function of our souls. We seek it. We thirst for it. We have to have it. And then you know what? We need to require it of others. Do not tolerate people who lie to you, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is all that matters. So that's cool. One thing of truth I wanted to say, and you raised it, and I have to tell you, I'm saddened to hear about our friend Michael and his loss. And I want him to know that we're thinking about him and he's in our prayers. He's a good man. Another truth warrior. So Michael Jaco, God love you, brother.
Definitely. Amazing. So where do we go from here? Is there room for Project Archimedes then on AI kill trails for helping prosecute war crimes, bring them to justice? Todd, or is that a referral to JAG?
Thank you for that. So for folks that aren't paying attention, projectarchimedes.org is how we intend to stop the 5G thing. There's an Achilles heel. And the Achilles heel is cesium-137 in the 5G network. And we can eliminate cesium-137. We can eliminate the whole thing from working. It happens that chlorine dioxide removes cesium-137 from our bodies. And they have been spraying, chemtrailing us, Brad, with cesium-137. That's what the atomic clock works on. It's also what they make nuclear weapons out of. And barium-137, both radioactive materials. And it turns out that we've had the answer the whole time, that we've got the ability to remove them from our bodies so we don't have to be their Synbio batteries. So that's a huge part of it. The other part is stopping the introduction of those materials. And that's what Bobby Kennedy, God love you, brother, is seeking to do.
Yeah, definitely. And on top of that, there's radium, cadmium, aluminum, strontium, and barium that are sprayed there, as well as trace elements of mercury, which are typically attached to the aluminum particles that they spray out through stratospheric injection that come out of the back end of those planes when they put it in Jet A, or they're just doing it in the private contractors.
Yeah. Well, we got to start arresting them, and we got to find law enforcement that are willing to go along with the program. You know, theoretically, we've got citizen arrest, but at the end of the day, it doesn't do you any good if the cops won't accept them as prisoners, they won't book them, and worse, if your county attorney or district attorney won't prosecute them, they won't bring charges, then all of that was for naught. You would have put yourself at risk, to do it, but. Brad, I think there's something to be said. When you see a pipe hitter like Michael Jaco or Colonel Chambers, walking down the road and going to take you into custody, that can have a tremendous chilling effect on those pilots. So if you know a pilot who's flying these missions or unknown cargo and they just go up and back the same day, I don't know, man, what kind of cargo are you actually flying? I think it's worth having a conversation and telling them, we're coming for you. You're on notice. You are on notice. What you are doing is injuring people and committing war crimes. We're coming for you. You'd better hang it up and you better start rolling on people. And by the way, Brad, I asked about Pam Bondi because, there's been about 100 lawyers on this side globally for the last, 5 years. We've all applied to lend hand and we've all been ghosted. All of us.
Wow.
Volunteered.
Wow.
They got rid of 900 federal prosecutors. They fired them, and they have not replaced them with not one of us. Not one of us.
Well, number one, do you think that's part of the final pincer movement of 100 days as a possibility, Todd? I heard she inherited 113,000 in DOJ. So maybe there's a flesh out there before purge.
Who knows this better? I did an interview. I was interviewed by one of those. It wasn't her. It was actually in a different agency with law enforcement powers. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, I don't need anybody telling me who to go after, how to, whatever. I have all the evidence. I already know who they are. Just give me a badge and I will prosecute them.
And let's go.
And the person was like, yeah, let's get it. Okay. All of us said the same thing, volunteered our time. We're licensed lawyers. We can do this.
Yep.
We've all been ghosted, not one of us. I mean, including former federal prosecutors who don't need any training. They just need the authority.
Wow.
So I don't know what's going on in the DOJ, but they're missing a tremendous opportunity, a lot of talent that's willing to clean up house, and they're not taking advantage of it. I find that to be very distressing.
That is distressing. That's good to know. I didn't know that as well. Thank you guys for offering that. So let's keep rattling that saber too. And what's going on?
We
here?
have to.
You have good patriots who are well versed, who are ready to go. Like, just start gun, off we go.
That's right. We know.
Get her done. Just like the Canadians, get her done. Like, that's it, right?
Well,
which are all Americans anyway.
I was going to say, you're going to have to come back for a chat about Canada, because another freaking, scam job, an illusion of choice. My God, bro, we're going to run out of time in a minute, but why don't you finish this off before we run out of time? The floor is yours, my brother.
I would just say that constitutional sheriffs, you could really tap in with them, and good people at Tactical Civics. Like, you have a civil duty anyway. And if there's something like that you can deputize, I don't know, the Todd Callenders of the world, and get after it, you already know. And why not? Why do you need to wait for permission at that top? That's a question I have. I'm putting out there for constitutional sheriffs, right? The ones who didn't do the duty for Tina Peters in Grand Mesa County, who is completely owned by the cartel, versus the others. So I would personally, I would start there, but I don't know any different. What am I? I'm a sovereign guy. I'm a common law guy, but I leave the legal and the prowess up to the Todd Callenders and Lee Dundasses and Tom Renses of the world and the RFKs. So I'll get after it. So everybody else can do their duty too. Share this, get involved with Todd and Project Archimedes and his group. That's what I would say.
Good, man. Thank you. And let us all remember, at the end of the day, this is a spiritual war, right? Everything we've read in the Bible is coming true. It is our life guide. And it doesn't mean you've got to go out and proselytize, but what it does mean is that you need to help people understand that we're in the final battle. Matthew 13:38 continues to haunt me. People are tired of me saying it, but it's true. We are the wheat and tares time. So please get right with God and spread the good word. Right? We don't have to worry. We're going to a better place if that happens. And if not, we can take our planet back. That's also fine. We're working on that, ladies and gentlemen. So join in, be a part of the answer. Project Archimedes, Liberty Club, Clout Hub, spread the word, please, because we actually have a momentum. Brad, you're a tremendous warrior, one of my favorite people. I'm grateful to have you on here, and I'm glad it's a monthly thing because we need you. So thanks for being here today. God bless you and everybody here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to watch Dr. Vliet, Dr. Chambers coming right after. Thanks, everybody.
God bless everyone.